It was supposed to be a simple Sunday. Monique, a hard-working single mom, wanted to reward her 14-year-old son, Jalen, for getting straight A's on his report card. She couldn't afford to do it often, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. But today was different. Today, she was proud. They headed to the mall. Just a little walk, some ice cream, and maybe a new t-shirt. Something to say, "I see you, baby. Keep going." Jalen found a shirt he liked in a trendy store. Red, bold letters across the front. Future Engineer. He held it up like it was already his future. His uncle was an engineer, the first in their family to graduate college. Jalen wanted to be next. Monique stepped outside to take a work call. Just a minute. Jalen stayed inside, holding the shirt in his hands. And that's when everything changed. A white teenager entered the store. Tall, clean, expensive hoodie. He looked around, nervous. He spotted Jalen, walked over, and smirked. "Cool shirt," he said. "Want to see how to get it for free?" Jalen frowned. "Nah, I'm good." The boy chuckled. "Relax. They don't watch kids like us." "Oh, wait," he added with a mocking glance. "They watch you." Jalen turned away. Then the white kid knocked something off a shelf, swiped a pair of earbuds from a display, and quickly shoved them into his hoodie. Seconds later, he pointed. "Hey, that black kid's stealing!" Jalen's eyes widened. "What?" But it was too late. 2 mall security guards came running. Then 3. Jalen raised his hands. "I didn't do anything!" But one of the guards already had him by the wrist. Monique came back and saw the chaos. Her son, pinned by security. A guard holding the red shirt like it was a smoking gun. "Get your hands off my son!" she shouted. "He was caught stealing," said one of the guards coldly. A customer pointed him out. "What customer? Where is he now?" "Gone," the guard said, not even blinking. Jalen's voice cracked. "Mom, I didn't do anything. He set me up." "I saw him holding the merchandise," the other guard barked. "What else do you people need to get it through your heads?" Monique froze. "What? Did you just say?" But they were already calling the police. 15 minutes later, an officer showed up. White, broad, sunglasses on, vest tight, hand already on his taser. He looked at Jalen like he'd already decided his fate. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't review footage. He just said, "Of course it's him." Then he grabbed Jalen's arm and started reading his rights. Monique stepped between them. "He's a child. You don't even know what happened." "Ma'am, I need you to step back." "No, you need to do your job. He was set up. Check the damn cameras." "I don't need cameras," the cop said sharply. "I've seen this play out 100 times." Jalen's hands were shaking now. Monique tried to shield him. "You're arresting my son because he's black. Admit it." The cop leaned in close to her face. "You people always play the race card. Maybe try raising your kids right for once." The air sucked out of the room. Jalen didn't say anything. He just stood still, eyes down, silent tears falling as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. Someone was filming. Of course they were. But no one stepped in. As they led him out of the store, through the mall, into the back of a cruiser like a criminal, Monique screamed after them. "He's 14! He didn't do anything! You're the criminals!" But the officer slammed the door shut in her face. To them, Jalen wasn't a boy. He was a problem. And the real thief? Already gone. The ride to the station felt longer than it was. Jalen sat in the back seat of the police cruiser, hands cuffed tightly, wrists starting to bruise. He didn't cry this time. His face was blank, eyes staring out the window like they weren't even his. Monique followed behind, headlights fixed on the flashing red and blue. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. At the precinct, the officer didn't even look at them as he pulled Jalen from the car. "This way," he grunted. Jalen stumbled. Monique stormed out of her car, yelling, "You can't just take him in like this. He's a minor. I'm going in with him." But a second officer stepped between them. Another white man, tall, tired eyes. "Ma'am, you need to calm down." "I am calm. You should see me when I'm not." He didn't smile, just blocked the door as they took her son inside. They led Jalen into a cold interview room. Metal chair, metal table, fluorescent light buzzing overhead. He sat down, quiet, hands in his lap, wrists red. The officer who arrested him, Officer Daniels, dropped a notepad on the table. "So," he said, "want to tell me why you tried to steal those earbuds?" Jalen looked up, confused. "I didn't steal anything." Daniels chuckled, bitter. "Of course. Let me guess. You were just holding them for someone else? That's new." "I never touched them. I was holding a shirt." Daniels leaned forward, voice dropping. "You people are all the same. Smooth lies, crocodile tears. But cameras don't lie." Jalen's lip trembled. "There are cameras?" Daniels paused, then smirked. "Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter. You were pointed out. That's good enough for me." Outside the room, Monique was pacing. Another officer, a younger woman, Latina, name tag read Ortiz, came to the desk. She'd just finished her shift, but stopped when she saw Monique. "You all right, ma'am?" Monique looked up, eyes blazing. "Number, I'm not all right. My 14-year-old son is in there, being treated like a criminal for doing nothing." Ortiz hesitated. "Do you know what happened?" Monique snapped. "Yes, I know exactly what happened. A white kid stole something, then blamed my son. Security didn't check anything, just grabbed the only black boy in the store. And now, here we are." Ortiz nodded slowly. "I'll see what I can find out." She stepped into the hallway and disappeared. Back inside, Officer Daniels stood up. "You're gonna be here a while, kid." Jalen blinked. "But I didn't do anything." Daniels turned his back. "Get used to saying that. You'll be saying it your whole life." Then he walked out, slamming the door behind him. Jalen flinched. Ortiz found Daniels at the vending machine. "Hey, that kid, the one you brought in. What's the evidence?" Daniels shrugged. Witness pointed him out. He had merchandise in his hands. Ortiz narrowed her eyes. "Did you check the cameras?" Daniels scoffed. "Don't need to. The story's obvious." Ortiz crossed her arms. "You sure?" "Because the mall's loaded with CCTV. Security probably already has footage." Daniels paused. "Why are you defending him?" "I'm not," Ortiz said. "I'm doing what you should be doing. Your job." 10 minutes later, she walked back to the front. "Ma'am," she said to Monique, "do you remember which store it was?" Monique blinked. "Yes, it was called Redline Outfitters." Ortiz nodded. "I'm going to call the store manager and ask for security footage." Monique gasped. "Thank you." "Thank you." Ortiz didn't smile, just walked off and dialed her phone. Back in the room, Jalen sat alone. He wanted to cry, but he felt like if he started, he'd never stop. The door opened. Officer Ortiz stepped in. She looked at him carefully. "You all right, kid?" He nodded, barely. She sat down across from him. "Listen, I've asked the store to send over their camera footage. If you're telling the truth, we'll know." Jalen's voice cracked. "I am telling the truth." Ortiz looked at him, long and hard. "I believe you." For the first time in hours, Jalen's eyes started to fill again. But this time, not from fear, from hope. Meanwhile, Monique was calling everyone she knew, her sister, her pastor, a lawyer. She wasn't going to let this go. Then her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. You don't know me, but I saw what happened at the mall. I recorded it. I think you'll want this. Attached. A video. She tapped play with shaking fingers and watched. The white boy. The theft. The false accusation. The guards rushing Jalen. All of it. On camera. Her knees gave out. But her rage? It stood tall. Officer Ortiz stood in front of the monitor in the back room of the station. The manager of Redline Outfitters had just emailed over the security footage. She pressed play. There it was, the white kid entering, nervously looking around. Jalen holding only a shirt. Then the theft. The boy pocketing earbuds, knocking something off the shelf, then pointing. That black kid's stealing. Ortiz froze the video. There it was, plain as day. Jalen didn't steal anything. He didn't even move. She copied the footage to a flash drive and walked down the hallway, her heart pounding. In the main office, Officer Daniels was sitting with another cop. Older, heavier, named Brooks. A desk sergeant who'd been there for over 20 years. She placed the drive on the desk. Here, this is from the store. Daniels didn't look up. Why are you still on this? Because he didn't do it, Ortiz said firmly. I've got it on tape. Brooks chuckled without smiling. Let me guess, some glitch in the Matrix? Or maybe the cameras are racist too? Ortiz ignored him, plugged the drive into the nearest computer, and hit play. Jalen's innocence filled the screen. Silence fell. Daniels frowned. So what? Maybe the kid planted it on him. Maybe he was a lookout. Ortiz stared. You saw the same thing I did. That boy was set up. Brooks leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. You want to go public with this? Let the whole department know we cuffed an innocent kid just because he's black? Will be a headline by morning. Ortiz's jaw clenched. So we cover it up? Daniels nodded slowly. We let it die quietly. Book the white kid if he resurfaces. Tell the mom we're looking into it. Done. Ortiz grabbed the flash drive and turned to leave. Brooks called after her. You get too loud about this, rookie. You'll be riding traffic stops till retirement. She didn't respond, but her silence said everything. Out in the lobby, Monique sat with her fists clenched. Then she saw Officer Ortiz coming. She stood up. Well, did you find it? Ortiz nodded. I saw everything. It's clear your son didn't steal a thing. He was framed. Monique's lips parted, breath catching. Then let him go. Ortiz hesitated. There's some resistance. Monique blinked. Resistance? What does that mean? Ortiz lowered her voice. Some of the officers, they don't want this getting out. It'll make the department look bad. Monique stepped closer. I don't care about your department's feelings. I care about my son. And I swear to God, if you don't release him, I'll walk out that door and start screaming until the media shows up. A pause. Then, do it anyway. Jalen sat alone in the room, staring at the wall. The door creaked open. Ortiz stepped in. You're going home, kid. Jalen didn't move. He blinked once, then said, What changed? Ortiz gave him a sad smile. Someone finally looked. Monique wrapped her arms around her son like she'd never let go. Tears, from both of them. Daniels stood in the background, watching with disgust. Whatever, just another thug in training. Monique turned toward him, slowly. I heard that. Daniels shrugged. If the shoe fits. Monique stepped forward. You ever think maybe you fit the shoe? The kind that stomps first and asks questions never? He didn't reply. He didn't have to. Outside the station, the sun had already started to set. Ortiz walked them to the car. "I'll be filing a report. And, if you want to press charges or go to the media." Monique nodded. "I do." She paused, then looked at Ortiz. "You're not like them." Ortiz shook her head. "I'm trying not to be." But back inside, Brooks was already making calls. "We'll say it was a misunderstanding. The mother was aggressive. The kid matched the suspect description. No wrongdoing. Internal file only." Daniels added, "And Ortiz? She's green, emotional, not thinking clearly." The cover-up had already begun. Later that night, Monique uploaded the video to social media with one caption: "They arrested my son because he's black. Here's the proof." It spread fast. Too fast. By midnight, local reporters were calling. By morning, it was national. And still, in the comments, the hate poured in. "Maybe if he wasn't dressed like a thug. She's just playing the race card. I bet he did steal something, just not on camera." But the truth was there for all to see. And not everyone could look away. By morning, it was everywhere. The video had gone viral. News anchors argued across split screens. Politicians tweeted statements. Celebrities shared the footage with hashtags like "Jaylen deserves justice" and "Hatran, this is America." But at the heart of it all was just a mother and her son. Monique sat at her kitchen table, still in the same clothes from the day before, holding Jaylen's hand as if letting go meant losing him again. At the station, things were unraveling. Officer Daniels tried to act normal, pretended the noise wasn't getting to him, but the phones kept ringing. Reporters kept calling. Protesters were gathering outside. Someone had spray-painted "You lynched a child" across the front window. Internal Affairs showed up by noon. Not because they cared, because they had no choice. They pulled Daniels into a private room, sat him down, asked him questions he didn't want to answer. He tried to stay calm. He matched the description. "You were told the real suspect was white." Miscommunication. There was footage. Daniels shifted in his chair. "You people don't get it. These kids grow up thinking the world owes them something." That shirt he had. "Future engineer? Please." The room fell silent. One of the investigators leaned forward. "You just ended your career with that sentence." News vans lined the block. Chants echoed from the street. "Say his name. Jaylen! Say his name! Jaylen!" Monique stood on the courthouse steps that evening, a microphone in front of her, tears in her voice, but steel in her spine. They saw a criminal where there was only a child. They put cuffs on his wrists before they even asked a question. And when they realized the truth, they tried to bury it. But we dug it back up. A pause. "My son is not your scapegoat. He is not your mistake to erase. He is not your fear." She looked into the cameras. "He is your wake-up call." Officer Ortiz watched from across the street. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Jaylen saw her, nodded, and for the first time, she smiled. Just a little. The department made a public statement, the kind that says nothing but hopes you'll stop asking. An incident occurred involving a juvenile. An internal review is underway. We are committed to fairness and accountability. No names, no apologies, just silence behind suits. But Monique wasn't done. She hired a lawyer, filed charges, civil rights violations, false arrest, emotional trauma, and she showed up to every interview. She told her story again, and again, and again, until no one could say they hadn't heard. Officer Daniels was suspended, then quietly let go. No pension, no ceremony, just a cardboard box and a badge placed face down. He watched the protests from his couch, bitterness boiling, They ruined me, he muttered. But deep down, he knew the truth. He ruined himself. Jalen didn't return to school for 2 weeks. He couldn't face the whispers, the looks. But one day, Monique found him sitting at the table with a pencil in his hand, sketching. "What's that?" she asked. He turned the paper around. It was a blueprint of a house, a real one, with rooms and windows and light. "I want to build homes," he said quietly. "Safe ones. For people who look like me." Monique's voice caught in her throat. "You will." Months passed. The video faded from the headlines, replaced by the next tragedy. But something stayed. In the protests, in the schools, in the conversations parents had with their kids, people remembered. A year later, Jalen stood on another stage. Not a courtroom, not a protest, but an award ceremony. He'd won a national youth design competition for his idea to create low-cost housing in over-policed neighborhoods. He wore a suit, still had the same eyes, but now they held something new. Fire. And Monique? She stood in the back. No camera on her, no microphone, just her hands clasped tight, and tears running down her cheeks. Not from fear, but from something rarer. Pride.